Hey there and welcome back. This is part 2 of our live coding video series where we are building a link tracking system in Payload together. We currently have a simple prototype working which can actually take in a link. So if we define a track link, for example the Google test, we can give it a slug on our system, we can give it a target URL. So if we call our server localhost 4000/Google, we actually get redirected, and also the link click is tracked and displayed in a chart. So we had 2 link clicks last time, 2 today, so I'm just going to add another one so that we can localhost 4000/Google so that we can see any differences. Yeah, so last day it was 2 clicks, now it's 3. So the issue is the first one that we can see here. And I forgot, we can also toggle 7 days and 30 days, which currently doesn't do anything really. The first issue we can see is that this was on the 8th of March. Today is the 11th of March. So there would actually be days in between. However, we can't see them. We can just see the actual days where clicks occurred. That's one of the first things that we'd fix. Which brings us to the plan for today. Like I said, first of all, fixing empty days. I also want to add an hourly breakdown. So not only on a daily basis, but also I want to see in the charts how many clicks occur per hour. And I also want to introduce a 1-day range so that I can just look at the past 24 hours. Then I want to add a table with pagination as well, where I want to just display all the specific link clicks when they occurred. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the information that we're tracking right now. But then I also want to later on track the device type, browser, and the operating system, and also show it in this table. Apart from that, we might do some UI improvements and also some testing. I don't know if I will be able to get everything done in this video, but if not, there will be a part 3. So let's start by fixing our empty days. So the key issue is that from our custom aggregation endpoint, which we created in here, we only get back days that actually contain at least 1 click. That's because all that we're doing here is basically querying all the relevant documents and then grouping them by the date. So if there is no result for this specific day, the day won't be included in the results. I don't think we can fix this issue in the aggregation pipeline itself. So what we could do is we could either do it on the server, so after aggregating our pipeline, or alternatively we could do it in the client down here. I will probably go for the server just because it's a bit cleaner and we get clean data that we can put out in our chart straight away. So first, let's just console log our results that we get back from the aggregation, query it again just to see how the data is structured. It should be enough if I refresh this page. Yeah, so as you can see, we get an array of objects. Every object has a _ID, which is our date string, and also the clicks. So what I will try to do to solve this issue is I will try to create an array of dates, basically between the start and the end date that we get here from our query. And then what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to take the Atlas results, more or less map through them and add them to this array so that we get a complete array of all dates. And if a date has clicks, I'm going to add the clicks. So, well, we could let the autopilot do it, but I would actually prefer to use moment.js as well. So I'm going to say moment start. We might have to install moment. I'm not sure. Yeah, we've probably used it as well. So let's say moment start is moment with the start date. Since both of our dates that we get here are actually ISO strings, we don't need to specify the format that it gets. If we would have another format, we could do like this, for example. So this is our moment start, moment end. And now I'll have to create the date array. So I'm just going to let the autocomplete help me if it would actually do something. It's going to create a simple while loop. And basically what it's going to do, it's going to push the current date to an array. Yeah, and then it basically adds 1 day to the date. So let's check if that does the trick. Console log date array. Restart the server and query it again. All right, yeah, moment is not defined, obviously. All right, now we get our array of dates. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are 8 days in this case, not the 7 that we want. Obviously, that might be an issue because we calculated the start date just basically subtracting 7 days. So what we should probably do is adjust our link click chart and only subtract 6 days, because in this case we will get rid of one of the days so that we actually have 7 days. So let's check again. Yeah, now we get an array of the last 7 days with the last day being today, and they have the exact format that we have here as well. So let's continue with that. So now what I have to do is basically I have to merge the two arrays, which it gives me a pretty good auto suggestion for. So I'm basically going to map through the date array again. Sorry, not again. That is the array that I just pushed to, so this array. And then I'm actually going to check if I can find any object within the Atlas results, so within this array, which has the ID of my date here. And then if it's found, I'm basically going to replace this date with the object in the original array. And if not, I'm basically going to create an object that says 0 clicks with this current date. And now I'm not going to return the Atlas results, but I'm going to return the merged array. So let's restart our server. And now our chart looks pretty well. Day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. That's exactly how I want it to look like. So let's check if the 30 days actually do something. Yep, they do. Because now we actually have all those empty days in there. I'm not going to check if it's 30, but it's probably 31 again. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16. Yep, so it's again 31, which makes sense. So we basically only have to subtract 29 days. All right, so that is step 1. Now I'm probably just going to add a few more comments in here. Loop through the days, just for context. I can remove this console log, and there I return the merged array. The next step is to add a range for 1 day. There are multiple ways of handling this. So I could either say I only want clicks that happened today. So I'm going to set the start date equal to the end date. Or I'm going to say, okay, I want the clicks of the last 24 hours. So to make things simple here, I'm only interested really in the clicks that happened today in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust our toggle here, which basically has 3 options now. I'm going to say, let's call it today. That makes more sense. Obviously this has the value. Let's call it today. That should work fine. So in here, obviously, what we need to specify is the option that we only have 1 day. In this case, I'm going to break it down because this will really get sort of complicated if I continue this this string here. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to say let start date, if date range is today, I'm going to set the start date to, basically right now. Let's do else if the date range is 7 days, we're going to subtract 6 days, and else I will do the if again. If it's 30 days, we are going to subtract 29 days. So now we can get rid of this line of code. And now this should basically enable us to only get the clicks of today. So let's toggle this one. All right, now I only get today's clicks. This is, however, first of all, it's not the correct value. It should be 2 clicks. But I know why this happens is because we're actually using the exact date. So we could actually query for the last 24 hours pretty easily. So let's do this. Obviously today we would just need to get rid of our exact time and then calculate the end of our current day and the start of our current day. And that would give us this query, but it's actually easier, let's call it 24 hours, to just subtract 24 hours, or in this case, should we do 24 hours? Or should we do 23.999? In this case, I'm just going to leave it for 24 hours because it will probably not matter. So let's adjust the rest here. 24 hours, last 24 hours. All right. And if we toggle it here, we should now, see the clicks that happened yesterday and the clicks that happened today, which is 3. So obviously this doesn't really help a lot because we don't want a daily breakdown here. We want an hourly breakdown here. So in order to achieve this, we basically have to extend our aggregation endpoint to not only handle daily grouping, but also hourly grouping. First, I'm going to add a mode. So const group mode equals rect.query.group mode. This is basically either hourly or daily. You could also do weekly, monthly, whatever you want. And in here, I will also add a toggle. No, for now I won't add a toggle. I will do it automatically. So if I toggle last 24 hours, it will automatically switch to the group mode hourly. So group mode, I will let group mode, and if it's 24 hours, I will not only set the start date, to 24 hours, but I also set the group mode to hour, and by default, this is day. I actually like it better when it's daily and hourly. I think that's easier to know. Group mode equals group mode. Daily, hourly. Now I have to adjust it here just for reference. Or daily. You could also add JS doc comments that would probably make sense, or if you're using TypeScript, you can define all this. So now that I have my group mode, I will have to adjust my aggregation pipeline depending on it. So as you can see here, we're actually grouping just by the date, which means year, month, and day. So what we'll have to adjust is, if the group mode is hourly, we'll actually have to group by the hour, not by the day. So let's see if MongoDB offers any help. MongoDB convert string to date. I think that's where I found this reference last time of how to use those placeholders. So this seems to be right here. That's year, month, and day. And then also we can use the uppercase H to our advantage. So let's do a semicolon, maybe, if that works, and say H. I'm just going to hard code it for now to see if this works, but basically this should now give us, it won't give us back an hourly grouping because we still have this array right here, which we will have to adjust as well. So for now, I'm basically just going to comment it out and actually return the Atlas results so that we can check if the grouping works as expected. So let's query this. Yeah, now we get, the hour is 15. That was 3 p.m. or something. Now it's 16, which means 4 p.m. That should be it. That's probably UTC time, so there's some time shift in there. But we will touch on that later. But that seems to work. So let's uncomment this again, and now we should do it flexible. So depending on the group mode, I will basically either do it this way. Yeah, so this added the double zeros, which makes sense. So I'll either do it hourly or I will do it on a daily basis. Now we will also have to adjust our data array that we create, because we don't only have to create one element for every hour, but we have to, one element for every day, but we have to create one element for every hour. So what I'm going to do, we can basically leave this as it is. The only thing that we have to adjust more or less is this one. So what I'm going to say is current date, group mode equals hourly. Then I'm just going to add 1 hour. Otherwise, I'm going to add 1 day. I'm just going to create a comment. If group mode is hourly, add 1 hour to the current date, else add 1 day. And let's log our data array again, just to check it. So yeah, it is still giving us, now it's giving us the days, obviously, because we have our 7 days. Let's switch to 24 hours. This should give us obviously we forgot to adjust the date format here, because this data array that is generated still contains the yearly format. So I will do it in here as well. If the group mode is hourly, it will have the hourly format, otherwise it will have the daily format. All right, so now we actually get, so this was yesterday at 6 p.m. and this shows us all the hourly clicks. Yeah, because this was our current hour. Got it. So it seems that it uses, the question I'm trying to figure out is if it uses the, so if it's like 4:30 p.m., if it puts the click into the 4 p.m. category, or in the 5 p.m., but it probably puts it in the 4 p.m. category, which makes sense because the clicks occurred, you know, it's basically 6:30. The clicks occurred, I think, 5 minutes before 6 or something, but we are also 1 hour ahead of UTC. So it basically recorded is as 16:50 or something in UTC. That's why it displays it here. Now we basically have two options. We could either leave those times in UTC and just mark it here as UTC, or we have to somehow convert the dates that are displayed here into the local time zone. Now this has to be done client side, because it can definitely occur, probably it's the case most of the times, that the server is located in a different time zone that the client is. So let's say the server is in America, the client is in Germany. Server and client will have different time zones. So in this case, what I will try to do, let's see if this fixes it, on the client side. So in our link click chart, instead of just displaying the ID, which is the date, I'm actually going to map through the data. So I'm going to say .map, let's say element. I'm going to return the element, but the underscore ID will be a moment date object with the element.id, and I will basically format it this way, but I will also have to specify so the curly braces can be object braces, but it can also mean that it's an arrow function. So I'm just going to say return, and I'll put it in here. That should fix it. So I'll have to tell Notion, not Notion, I'll have to tell Moment how my date is formatted. Okay, so in this case, my date is formatted in this manner. Now basically what this does, it maps through them, and instead of just displaying this time string, it will basically format it again and parse it, and hopefully parse it in my local time zone. So let's see if that works. So this is 14, 15, 16. No, it still doesn't work. It did the formatting, however, it took the UTC time. So working with time zones can be quite challenging. And if you're wondering why this chart looks different, it's actually the 12th of March. So I'm recording this one day later, and I added a few more clicks. There is one thing I missed yesterday. So we don't only have the issue of our time shift, that it doesn't display the times correctly. So this is a click that I just added. And as you can see, it's 8:30. And it recorded it, or at least it shows it at 7 p.m., which is not correct. But we also have the issue that we create, even though this click has been recorded at the current hour, we actually generate data for 1 hour more, which is actually in the future, and it doesn't work. The issue, the underlying issue here, is actually on the server. So if we go down into our aggregation handler, what we're actually doing here is we take the current date, which is delivered to the server in UTC time, and we turn it into a moment object twice. So this is actually, it's already a moment object from the converted date, but we turn it into a moment object twice, which leads to the server parsing the date in its current time zone. And since our local development server here is in Germany, which has 1 hour of time shift, this actually produces this 1 hour more that we don't really want because we don't have the data yet. So I would probably create a entire separate video about working with time zones. I feel like it's a very complicated topic that it's hard to wrap your head around. And for now, I'm just going to tell you the most important parts, but feel free to let me know if such a video would be interesting for you. So let's check out our chart again. Actually, one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to set the default to 7 days so that I don't always have to change it. Sorry, I'm going to set the default to 24 hours. And now let's refresh and see. Okay, that actually didn't fix our issue. Okay, so that actually didn't seem to fix the issue. And it's probably because we also have to parse the start date here as a UTC date, which it is. Otherwise, this again will parse the date with the server time zone, which is not a good idea because we're delivering the dates in UTC form. So now it should actually end with this one click exactly, but it's still displayed at 7 p.m. So what I'm planning to do to fix this is I want to improve my aggregation handler so that it doesn't only return this self-invented time format, but it should actually return a full ISO string in UTC time instead, which I can then parse on every client in the local time zone. So I'm going to check the MongoDB parse date to string. I'm going to check the placeholders again. Let me find the reference. Yeah, there it is. And also I'm going to check the ISO standard. It's 8601 for the date and how it looks so that I can actually mimic it. Yeah, let's just go through the Wikipedia entry. That's sometimes the best solution. So this is our standard here in UTC time, and this is if we want to add any UTC offset. But in this case, we are storing the information in UTC time, and we're basically sending the data in UTC just to have it all standard and normalized. So first I'm going to adjust our data array that we generate here. So what I will do instead is I will check if the group mode is hourly. What I'm going to do is data array dot push. I'm just going to copy it in here. And I'm not going to format it with moment.js, but I'm converting it to ISO string. And I will just take the first part of it. So as you can see here, if we only need the date, we will take just everything before the T. So yeah, for hourly, obviously it's the entire string, and else I will basically, yeah, in fact we could also just format it with moment.js. It will get us the same thing. The key part is that if we're using hourly, we actually get the full ISO string back here. So let's check if this actually does something. We should get our console logs below if we query it. Obviously we don't get any data back now since they don't match. So as you can see here, we're using the hourly and we actually get the entire ISO string back. The one thing that is missing now is we also have to adjust our placeholders here. So this one is fine. This is if we're using just a grouping by day, but this one needs to be adjusted. So let's check the syntax again. So it's the T in between the date and the hours. And we also have to add hours, minutes, and seconds. So this is minute, a large uppercase M. And I'm going to check which one is the seconds. Yeah, just below that, uppercase S. So it should work like this. Actually, we don't need the exact milliseconds because we just group it by the hour. So I'm sorry, we don't even need those placeholders because we just replace it with a double digit 00. So now if you refresh our server and query again, we should actually get our data back. Nope, it's still not back. So let's see how they look. Yeah, obviously we forgot to add the milliseconds and the Z, just to look at the, so this is hours, minutes, seconds, and the Z. Okay, so there seems to be more specifications that also include the milliseconds. Well, in this case, we will actually have to revert back to not using this ISO string, but actually formatting it. But we will format it like an ISO string. So we'll put the T in here, hours there, minutes, seconds, and we will just use this specification. So hours, minutes, seconds, and then a uppercase Z, hours, minutes, seconds, and a Z in here. And obviously we'll have to add it in here as well. Let's check the results. And we still don't get any data back. So let's check the arrays again. As you can see now, it actually adds the UTC offset and not a Z. So I'm guessing that the Z is actually a placeholder like the Y or the M for the UTC offset. So I will have to escape this by putting it into square brackets. And now we finally get our data back. So let us now parse the ISO string that we get back here as an ID and actually put it into our local time zone on the client. So in order to do this, I don't really need this formatting help for moment anymore because we're providing it with a standard ISO string, which it can read by default. So what I will have to do here is I will have to tell it to turn it into the local time zone. And now our hours are correct. So this is 8 p.m. and our last click occurred past 8 p.m. So now we actually have our correct date and time here. Next up, I want to add a table below our chart that actually shows the specific event that occurred, just with the timestamp for now, but it will have additional information later. So the way I want to implement this is, if possible, I will have to check this. If I click on a specific hour in this case, or on a specific day here, if I click on it, it should actually show all the relevant results below the chart. So what I will have to do is I will have to check Tremor. I think it was tremor.so exactly, and see how I can implement this click feature in a line chart. So I think I found the relevant paragraph in the documentation. So it seems there is a on-value change prop, which means if I click on a chart here, it actually displays me the event type and also the value that I clicked on, which I then need to perform another query to fetch all the relevant events that occurred on that day, for example. So let's check the demo code to see how it's implemented. And it seems to be pretty straightforward. So I can create a state here, and I have this on value change which gives me the value basically, and then I can just use it for whatever I want. So let's implement this in our chart. I'm going to say on value change. And for now, I'm just going to console log it to see what data I get. But in addition to that, I will create a state straight away. Const clicked chart element. But I'm not going to do anything with it for now. So if I click on it, it should actually, it console logs me some values. Sometimes it's null, however. It seems to depend if I click on the right thing or not. We will probably figure this out later. So there seems to be two event types. I can click on a category, which means on one single graph, or I can click on a specific dot. Obviously, if I click on the graph, on the chart, line chart thing, it doesn't really help me a lot because I just know what I clicked on. So I will have to check in my logic, I will have to check if the event type is actually dot, because only if it's dot, I actually get back the ID, which will then contain our date and, if relevant, the hour. So let's implement the simple fetching functionality. I'm going to create a use effect, again with a anonymous async arrow function. As a dependency, I'm going to set click chart element, and I have the event type. So I'm going to say if click chart element dot event type equals, what was it again? Category. I'm going to return. Also, if it's null, I'm going to return. So that way I make sure that only if I have the event type dot, then I will continue. I could also wrap this entire block into an if statement, basically omit those ones, but I like to add the conditions at the top and don't have a lot of nested logic. So down here, I'm going to do an Axios request. to my API, to the track link clicks. And I'm not going to call our get chart data, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to define a query. So I'm going to say where created at is less than or equal to and greater than or equal to the start date. So I basically want to query only this specific day. So I first have to get the day, and I forgot to add ID created at. Just going to say day, and that will basically be our event, our click event dot underscore ID, and then I obviously have to parse it in moment. So I'm going to say click chart element dot underscore ID, and I will have to parse it with moment. And I will have to format it, and I'll have to tell it which format it currently is in. So the format will be the day and the hour. And then I will format it into the standard ISO date, which I'm then going to use to create the day start and also the day end as an ISO string that I can use to query it. Now this will only support the daily querying. I will change this by actually adjusting this here. So if the date range equals 24 hours, which means we are on an hourly basis, I'm actually going to return, I'm just going to add 1 hour, and if not, I'm going to return day, which means I will add 1 day to it. I will also rename it, so time period, and I'm going to call this time period start and time periods end. Now I'm going to use this, so created at should be greater than, and now I'll have to put in my time period start, and it should be less than the time period end. And also I obviously have to include my track link here, the ID of it that I actually want to fetch. So for now, let's just console log the data that we get back here and see if this actually already works. So let's click on 5 p.m. for example. We get our event clicked. Nothing else happens, obviously, because I don't do anything here apart from console logging. So what I want to do instead is I want to set click chart element to the value that I get. Now let's click again. And actually we get something back. We get the request back. However, those are way too many clicked links. Actually 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see if the tracked link query worked. So if it's actually the correct link, but it seems that seems to be the case. So this query for the link at least seems to work, but obviously the time period doesn't. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. As you can see here, tracked link is 2 separate IDs, and we are on the ID with the 466 at the end. So this one is correct. This one is not. So let's check what the issue in our query here is. So one thing that I immediately noticed is that autocomplete didn't do a great job, Copilot. because we have to say it needs to equal track link equals. So that seems to fix our ID issue, because now we get back a lot less elements and they all seem to have the correct ID indeed. So that one is fixed. Still the dates are remaining. So let's just console log time period start and time period end to just see how the data looks like. And those dates don't really seem to make too much sense, because the start date is the 11th, so yesterday at 11 p.m. and the end date is basically today at midnight. So let's see what we actually get out of our time period. Let's also console log the time period. And obviously that seems to be the place where we made a mistake, because we actually formatted here to just contain the date and not the hour. So let's do it dynamically here. So if the date range is 24 hours, we will actually format it as an ISO string with the hour. And if it isn't, we're basically just going to say 00, which basically means beginning of the day. So now we get back an actual string that again contains the offset, which we don't want, which is not our main issue here though. So the main issue is that we clicked on the 15, so it is 3 p.m. So it should start at 3 p.m. and end at 4 p.m. Okay, so that might actually be the issue with the offset. So let's just correct that right now by wrapping the Z into braces. And now this query actually seems to work fine. So if we click on 3 p.m., we actually get back the query for 3 p.m. until 4 p.m. today. So let's click on 4 p.m. Now we get back 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So this is how it continues. However, as you can see, the results still do not match. I think there's something off with the date filter. So what seems weird to me is that the end date filter actually seems to work. So if I click here, I get an array of 6 elements. If I click here, I get an array of 6. Here I get 8. Here I should get 9. Yeah, so this seems to work, but not the start date. Let's see if there is an issue with those queries overwriting each other. So what I'm going to do is remove this end period for now. And what should happen now is it should only show results that are after the start date, which actually seems to be the case. So here we get 3 back, here we get 2 back. Now we only get 1 back. So those 2 queries seem to overwrite each other. Now this happens because we have the same attribute here that we query for 2 different sort of restrictions. what we have to do here is build an end, or wrap those two queries in an array with an end query basically. Now we could in theory do this within the URL, but it will just be way too complicated. So what I'm going to use instead is the query string library. So I'm going to create a query object, and in that I'm going to specify the query that we just put in the URL directly, but I'm going to specify it as an object. Now this is not correct, you can ignore it, but what we have to do is we have to create an end attribute, which is an array, and in this one we will have to do created at greater than time period start, and that's exactly what we should not do. But also we need to add created add, we can basically copy that, duplicate it, less than time period end, and we can also put our track link in here as well. Obviously those brackets should not be there. Yeah, sorry, they need to be there, but they need to have one each. All right, and now what we have to do, we can get rid of all of this. We only have to call the query string library. I don't know if it's actually, if we have to add it, QS from query string. So now what we can do is, where is our query? Here it is. We can call .stringify and put in our query object. Now we get a webpack complaint because we actually, the package name is called QS. So let's refresh our page and check if our query actually works now. All right, so we get back only one document. Let's click here, we get back one document. However, here we get back 0 documents. So I'm suspecting that, let's click here, we should get back to, yeah. So that is again the time shift issue here. So if we click here, we actually get the results that should appear here, which is probably related to our time zone issue, because if we click here, the event actually contains our local time because it can only read this ID. Okay, so the issue with that is it thinks this time is UTC. So in order to fix this, I will actually have to subtract our UTC offset from this time. So what I'm doing here is I'm subtracting, sorry, not subtract, subtract. I'm subtracting the UTC offset in minutes from my date here. So this should already be enough because the time period is the foundation for both start and end. So now if we click on here, we actually get the results that we are expecting. So here we get one result. Let's check if the time is matching. So this occurred at 4 p.m. and 4 minutes, but this is UTC time again, so it was actually 5 p.m. and here are our two ones that should also match the time. That one was 3 p.m. That one was 3 p.m. as well, and this is our chart for 3 p.m. So instead of logging this to the console, let's now display it in a simple table. For that, I'll have to create another state. So I'll call it selected elements, and this will be an array. And instead of just logging our data to the console, I'm going to set the state to res.data in this case, because I also want to, the docs are actually in res.data.docs. However, I want to retain the actual meta information, which tells me, okay, this was my limit. Do I have a next page to use it in a pagination later on? So below the chart, I will just add a simple div for now with a margin top of 40. And in it, let's create another div, flex call with a space y, let's say 4. And in here, I will map through the selected elements. And for now, I'm just going to, obviously I'll have to call .docs.map. And obviously there's no IP address for now. There's just a created at. And to complete things, I also want to show the total docs. So I'm just going to say total docs and selected elements dot total docs. So let's refresh. And if I click on here, yeah, it shows me total docs 2, and it shows me the 2 timestamps where the click occurred. If I change this, this should actually update with the selected information. If I click on the chart, nothing should happen, which is correct. If I click on a dot again, it should load the information. Before we optimize our table and add pagination and more features, it makes sense to also add the functionality to track a user's device type. So if it's a phone or a desktop, the operating system, maybe the browser, as much as we can get, so that we can actually display it here as well, not just the timestamp. For this, I'm going to use a library that is available for Express, UI parser.js. Sorry, UI parser.js. This actually helps us to parse a user agent. So I'm going to install it here. And what we will have to do is in our server TS, in our custom Express route here, we first have to extract our user agent from the request. So in here we have to call const user agent string equals rec.get user agent. And then after that, we will have to add our parser, which I'm just going to copy the code snippet from. And obviously I will have to import it. So this will, yeah, we will not lock the parser. We will just parse the results and put our user agent string in here, restart the server, and let's just check our user agent. So in order to do this, I will have to call our custom endpoint again, Google. So let's see. So this is our full user agent string. It extracted the information about the browser, so Chrome, even which version it is, the engine, our operating system, which is macOS, the device, Apple, and let's see if we can also get a desktop information out of here. So the type is actually undefined, which is a pity because it would be a very interesting information to have if it's a mobile phone that access our website or if it's a desktop. So I just did 1 minute of research and I found this GitHub discussion where they actually discuss that there is no device type called desktop. So if you basically call it from a desktop, the device type will be undefined, just like in here. If you do call it from a mobile phone, this will have a type. So we will just assume that if the device type is undefined, we will call it a desktop. And if it's anything else, we can use the device type to actually save to the database. In order to store the information that we retrieve from the user agent, we will have to extend our tracked link clicks collection by a few more fields. So the ones that I'm interested in is the browser. I'm not sure if I should store the version of it. I will probably just go ahead and store the browser for now. So I will call it browser. It will be type. Well, in this case, we could either say type select or type text. I'm just going to go for text now. It would probably make sense. Maybe we can find a list of possible browsers. Yeah, so those are our browser name. It would probably make sense to have this as in select because then we could filter it out better. On the other hand, if we get an unknown device browser and we have a select here, that might actually prevent the click from being stored because it will complain that it's not one of the available options. So for now, I'm just going to leave it as text. What I'm also going to add is the operating system. So just going to leave it as text as well. Yeah, it added a lot of stuff here again. So for the device, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to make it a type group because I want to store more than just the device name. So I'm going to store, this has to be an array. I'm going to store the vendor. I'm also going to store the model. And last but not least, I'm going to store the type. So if it's undefined, it will be undefined. Otherwise, it will have a type in there. Now, the only thing that I have to do in our server TS is when I create this track link click, I will have to include all the information that is relevant here. So I'm going to say browser equals the browser name, device equals not the device type. This will be the entire object. And for the operating system, this will be the operating system name. So let's call our link again. And check our newest results here. Track link clicks. Just have to refresh the admin panel one time. And now we should not only have our timestamp, we should also have our browser, our operating system, device, model, and the type is undefined since it is a desktop. So let's display this information below our chart. Let's go to Google Test. If we select this one here, yeah, now we should see our results. And now we just have to extend this table. So yeah, I mean, you could store the IP address. We're not going to do this in this case, but I will display the browser. I will display the operating system. I will display the device vendor, model, and type. If it's not a type, it will be called desktop. And obviously we'll have to add the question marks here because we have results where the device object is not set. So this will actually throw an error if we don't do this. So let's check out our info again. Yep. And here, as we can see, we now have all of our information here. It's the browser Chrome, it's macOS, Apple, Macintosh, and is type desktop. This will be it for today's video. There will be a part 3 where we will actually improve our table. We will add pagination. We might also add a breakdown by device type maybe, or by operating system, so that we can actually see 2 charts in here, one for, let's say, Chrome, one for every other browser. We might adjust to that. Also, we will do some UI improvements, make it prettier. We will do some cleanup, commenting, and testing, and then we should be done for this functionality. So if you do have any questions, let us know in the comments below. And apart from that, see you in the next video and take care.